You are listening to The Wave, Southend, your new go-to local mental health and wellbeing podcast. I'm Maxine.
Hi Maxine, I'm Stuart.
And we'll be your hosts for today for this episode of The Wave. So today we're going to focus about wellbeing, talk about what that means to us personally and on a broader perspective, and just generally get to grips with what wellbeing means for us.
Okay, so what is well-being then? Because does that mean that I feel well or I don't feel well, or is there lots of other things attached to that?
I mean, it can be a combination, can't it? Wellbeing is much more complex than just a word. So we describe ourselves as a wellbeing podcast, but actually when you think about what that means, it's different things for different people. When you look at kind of the definitions of wellbeing, it simply states that it's being comfortable, healthy or happy, but it's actually a much more complex situation than that. And it changes. Everybody's wellbeing can fluctuate. There might be opportunities when you feel much more in control of your life and you feel much more able to make decisions and feel supported. And there might be other times in your life where actually your wellbeing's affected through no fault of your own or things that are out of your control. So I think the best way to kind of take this discussion forward is thinking about the different things that can affect well-being. So that might be your life satisfaction, the relationships, things that you're connected to, people and places that you're connected to, things that are important for you, but also how your health, your life expectancy, ill health, I mean, that can change. You might have a chronic condition and find ways of living with that. Or any of us at any time could be struck down with something and we have an acute illness and a big change to our life, which will absolutely affect how we live our lives, the choices we make, the people around us, and ultimately our mental health. What we can do and what we do. So things like our work, our hobbies, our employment. What are the things that motivate us to do those things? Do they make us happy? How much choice do we have in that? It's all part of how we perceive well-being. And that can also include things like where you live, your home security, how safe your neighbourhood is. Are you connected to your neighbourhood? What does that mean? And personal choices, which can be underlined by financial freedom, by choice, by skills, by knowledge. So it's such a broad subject.
Such a complex thing, isn't it, really?
It really is.
So is well-being different for different age groups, would you say? Do young people feel that they're more in control of their well-being, or do older people feel they're more in control? How does it span across the ages?
I think everybody has a sort of different perception of well-being, but actually how you feel, you might not realise what is well-being for you because you might not have the space to think about yourself at a given moment in time. And I think when you think about young children particularly, how much control do they have over their well-being? You know, we are, as parents or caregivers or person that is responsible, which could even be the state is responsible for a child's care and development. You think about the basic needs. Is that well-being? I guess it is to some degree because the child is safe, the basic needs are met. But there might be other things that we need to factor in, you know, how much social interaction they have, how comfortable they are to explore and be safe pushing the boundaries, who they have around them, what opportunities are they given through education, leisure, family, friends. So well-being from an infant's perspective will be different to the development of a child as they go through primary school, and their perception of well-being will change. They may not have the ability to communicate not feeling particularly happy about something or frustrated or scared. So it's the responsibility of people around them to maybe check in and think, is that young person, is that child okay? And as they develop into young adulthood, well-being will be very different, and there'll be lots of tensions, I guess, around, having teenagers myself. There's tensions around what I might think is a safe decision or a safe thing that makes them happy, and their perception of their well-being will be very different to a kind of protective parent.
So it sounds to me then as though you can't really measure it as such. So there's no real measure, real sort of concrete measure. I know you've talked about all the things that make up well-being. What about things like personal responsibility for well-being, though? Because surely it's up to us as individuals to try and promote our own well-being and do things that create us have that feeling of being in control or feeling well, etc. How much do you put emphasis on that as part of your work?
So I think one of the most important things is choice, isn't it? Choice and control. And as you develop through your life and as you come into adulthood and you get the opportunity to make choices and control, then personal well-being is really at that point in your mindset. You may not have had opportunities to think about what is right for you or what you want to do or what makes you feel good or what's considered healthier decisions for you. Because when you think about well-being, it isn't just about living longer, having happy lives. It's about, connection, relationships, being able to have choices and control. And those things, I think, as you progress through adulthood and you have different life experiences, there are different influences around you, different choices and opportunity, then you can maybe think about, what is my role in this? Because I'm sure anybody listening has had periods of time where they've been confident, where they've been absolutely able to say, I know what works for me, I feel happy, I feel safe, I feel connected, things are going great, my well-being needs are being met. And then there'll be other times where you have no control, or you think to yourself, I can't function, I can't do what I need to do. So much is coming at me in life. I'm just firefighting all the time. So I haven't got brain space to think about what I need to do for myself to improve my well-being. And I think with some of the work that we push through sort of health services, and I'm part of the local community, Southend Council, part of the communities team, and looking at living the best life, living well, ageing well, caring well. They're all strategies that are important, and absolutely, I agree with you, personal responsibility is there, but it's about looking at that person in the whole system and not just thinking this is just your responsibility, go and do. We've recommended to do more physical exercise. We've recommended to eat a better diet, don't smoke, and, have healthy relationships. They're all great pillars of well-being, but actually sometimes somebody just needs some support to mobilise themselves into thinking differently about how they live their life.
So do you think it's something that you can teach, or is it something that one picks up naturally as you go through life, you think? Because it's interesting when you look, across the spectrum of people, there are people that will probably look more on the dark side of things and how bad their life is, and there's others that have got that optimistic view. So is it that those people with the optimistic view, their well-being is better? Or is there something missing with the people that are a bit more gloom and doom type thing?
I think it's more complex than that. I think, again, your ability to exercise choice and control over your immediate environment and your future plans, and the support mechanisms around you, really, whether that be a best friend, a son, a daughter, a grandparent, a work colleague. I think if you're looking at sort of trying to navigate your way through well-being and trying to understand where you are and what's important to you, that you've got to give yourself permission to be flexible around it. What might work for me one day and might absolutely meet all my needs could absolutely change in a heartbeat through no choice of my own or no control. But actually it might be the responsibility of other people around me to guide me through that and to give me a bit of insight into trying new things, or motivate me into feeling, that I'm at a place where I could think differently about my situation. I think it's really difficult when we've been through such a kind of traumatic experience, haven't we?
Yeah,
the pandemic's had a huge effect on everybody. Yeah. And I don't think we're anywhere near, recovery from that. And even the strongest of characters and the most successful individuals have been completely flawed by, the impact of not knowing what's going to happen next, and the fear factor that brought to people, and the loss. There's been huge loss: relationships, people, jobs, homes, security, safety. But there's also been the other side of that, where there's been a sort of an explosion of talent, an explosion of entrepreneurship, an explosion of living your life differently and almost not carefree attitude, but a kind of let's go for it, let's just do this, let's try it.
Yeah.
So I think there's different times. You know, well-being is going to be very different for different people. And I think it's the responsibility of all systems, all organisations, professionals and communities together to pull together and recognise that in themselves and each other to help people through what might be a difficult time. But also celebrate the things that we do every day that make us feel safer, happier, more connected, that we might not consider as well-being.
So what about us really as a country? Where do we sit, like in the world of well-being as a country to live in? Where does the UK sit? Have you got any feel for that? Or is there been any sort of statistical things that have come out around well-being? And
I think one of the sort of the biggest understandings of where we are in the UK is obviously the National Office of National Statistics have run the surveys on understanding where people see themselves and trying to get to grips with people's experiences, and that's given us some data around life satisfaction.
Okay.
And I think it's a difficult time at the moment because there's so many political changes, and I'm not well versed in being able to sort of get to grips with some of the bigger political things that are happening on our landscape as a country, and some of the massive changes that we've had in terms of leadership and the uncertainty that's brought, and where we go next with that. But I do think as a whole, as a nation, we're very good at coming together when we need to. I think the pandemic absolutely showed that, well-being can also be gifting your time, your resource, your support to others, as well as focusing on yourself. So I think as a nation, we're geared up and motivated overall to promote well-being. We recognise what is good for us, as people, as human beings. And I think we're very good at local level in communities at responding to that and pulling together at times of crisis, but also celebrating the things that are happening. But we've got a lot of unsung heroes that do that as well at neighbourhood levels. I'm not sure we're particularly good as a nation to celebrate that aspect of our sort of daily lives or things that are happening in neighbourhoods. I think we can definitely work on celebrating those success stories, but I do think that we're more forward thinking in recognising and responding to things like mental health. Definitely good at educating around the things that could promote your well-being, and thinking differently about what that might look like. So bringing arts, leisure, culture, recognising that those things are just as important as making sure that you live a healthy life from a clinical perspective, and that you maybe don't engage in the things that we know from research are not going to be healthy for you, for example, smoking. I do think we're definitely more forward thinking, and I think there is a real appetite to understand well-being. My background's in social work, and the Care Act is the legal framework that we follow, and wellbeing is the underlying principle of that your support for adults and vulnerable adults is very much about personalising what is right for them, that looking at holistic ways of really supporting a person to live the best life they can live. And I think we're very forward-thinking in that sense.
So it sounds as if we're in the Premier League for wellbeing then, across the world.
Well, potentially. I'm one person, somebody else might have a very different view on that. I certainly think the appetite is there. I think there's motivation. I think we celebrate communities. I do think we recognise that there is lots of factors to do with well-being. We have to be careful that we don't just band well-being as a sort of blanket term.
Strapline or something,
I think there are risks around that. I think sometimes we can think strategically that we're, supporting well-being, but we're not necessarily considering that is different for everybody, and all of us will have a different take on that. You might be very good at self-initiating and taking personal responsibility for your well-being at certain times of your life, but when those choices are affected or impacted by health, by social networks changing, by loss of financial security or home security, then suddenly we're in a sort of a realm that we might not feel prepared for, and so we do need to pull on those resources around us.
Do you think that young people have a real grasp of well-being and what that means, or do you think they're still finding their way with that?
I think they've had a really tough time, actually. I don't think we celebrate our younger generations and the gifts and skills that they have. I think there's a lot more we can do in that sense. There's still a lot of work to do in recognising that they have a voice and what they've got to say is important and valuable, and we could learn a lot, you know. As a sort of parent myself, you know, with young adults, it's hard to let that kind of protective guard down. But actually, I've also, you know, you've got to concede a few things sometimes, haven't you? And think, actually, I take your point.
Sometimes you have to let them find their own way, don't you? Make their own mistakes at times as well, which is not always easy to do.
It's the hardest thing. Yeah. And their perception of what is right for them at that time will kind of raise some anxiety for people that care about them, whoever that person is, and for systems around a young person. I do think that our younger generations are definitely more clued up in terms of looking after themselves. I think they've had a really tough time. You know, they've been really excluded and isolated through COVID, and that whole social connection and feeling that they've got choices and control over the next stages of their life has been robbed of them. You know, the excitement and motivation about studying and going on or trying a new job or moving, relocating, you know, they've lost a good few years of that, and I think it's going to have we'll see the knock-on effects of that in their mental health. There's a lot of anxiety about socialising, but I do think that our young people, you know, they're a little bit more open and a little bit more honest.
So what about, I'm going to be a bit contentious here then. So what about the role of social media in wellbeing then? Because I would say as an older person, which didn't have those sort of things, well, you had to go out, you had to socialise, you had to meet your mates and have a pint in the pub, etc., etc. And I find a lot of people now are sometimes reluctant to do that. They'd much rather stay at home and play a game or be online to talk to their friends. I mean, I'm not trying to compare the two. I'm not saying that my wellbeing was better then, but surely that if some of the things you talked about in wellbeing, which is about getting out there and socialising, if that's not happening, then could you argue that social media is probably not a good thing for wellbeing, or does it enhance it in some way?
I think it complements. I think that, you know, for some people, you know, adults as well as young adults and our youth, that social connectivity might be very difficult and challenging, and the confidence to do that, or the opportunity to do it with a parent or caregiver that's supportive of that in a healthy way.
I think that's the key, though, isn't it?
It's the healthy balance. It's the healthy balance about, you know, managing social media, managing social connections, ensuring that, you know, we're in healthy relationships, safe relationships. And I do understand that, you know, social media puts a lot of pressure on all of us, actually. You know, our sort of ageing population, if you like, are getting to grips with social media now, and there's lots of positives about that. You know, it's a great communication tool. It can certainly help people connect, you know, nationally and internationally, and even job opportunities are coming through with you know, through gameplay and creativity. But it's a healthy balance between striking, you know, recognising that you might enjoy that and you might really like the things that social media brings to you or gaming brings to you. But there is a point where actually you need to balance that with real connection, feeling, you know, motivated to be with other people, to have conversations that are not through headsets or, you know, texting. But equally, you know, for somebody who doesn't have the confidence, they might have low self-esteem. They might be living with autism, for example, where that social connection feels very, very traumatic. Or somebody that is actually, you know, has a communication difficulty themselves, whether that's a sensory impairment and doesn't feel confident to reach out and mix with other people. Social media has a great opportunity to help them engage and be a platform for communicating.
Yeah, no, I can see that. That.
Yeah.
So let's just putting it back to more local then. Where do you think Southend sits as far as wellbeing? Do you think we're a healthy city from a wellbeing perspective, or obviously we must have our challenges like anywhere, but how would you see Southend?
So, the sort of wider determinants of health, isn't it, really, is that it's not just one single factor. I think in Southend there is an appetite to for all of us to improve our wellbeing. I think there's local leadership around that and recognition that, we need to target resources effectively. We need to be listening to our residents. We need to be co-producing strategies around wellbeing and living well. Southend Council itself has got its strategies around living well, caring well and ageing well, really important things. And that is across the lifespan, actually. So, and recognising that even early child development, you have to target understanding and education at a very young age and helping our infants understand that social connectivity is just as important as singular connectivity to a family or core member, that friendships are really valuable, but choice and opportunity. And I think that we are... we're in a good place. There's a lot of work to do. It's not just something we can, wave a strategy at and suddenly everybody is forward focused and living the best life they can. There are challenges. But I think that we've got the commitment of our leadership and our local government to really help people and educate and listen and be responsive to that and have purpose in what we're doing. Pillars of wellbeing is about life satisfaction, living the best life you can at the stage you're at, and there's always an opportunity for positive change, and it's who helps you along that journey.
Okay, so...
It's complicated, isn't it? It's
me, I didn't realise wellbeing was such like a Pandora's box of things, isn't it?
It is, it really, really is.
So...
and it's an ever-changing landscape, isn't it?
Yeah. What's the sort of way around there? So is your wellbeing driven by your mental health, or is your mental health driven by your wellbeing, do you think?
I think it's an interchangeable situation, really. I think, everyone's got mental health. Everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've all got mental health. But it's just, at different stages, different things will trigger you, and your coping mechanisms will be very different, and your outlook on life will be very, very, very different at different times in your life. And again, it's that external influence, isn't it? And having the support systems around you, whoever that is, whatever that is, and however it's working with you. Mental health is a tricky subject. It's a subject in its own right, isn't it? And it's very difficult to see yourself or give value to yourself if your mental health is not strong. Yeah. And it's very difficult to accept that you're worthy of feeling safe, connected, well in yourself, taking care of yourself, or be connected to other people. If your mental health is not strong enough, it's very difficult to see the wood for the trees sometimes. And sort of working with people with lived experience around mental health and some very challenging situations, and situations where their liberty has been deprived and their choices have been controlled by other people making the best decision on their behalf. It's really hard for somebody to feel valuable enough to think about themselves at that time. And I think we all have a collective responsibility to look out for each other and to maybe recognise some of the signs of, if somebody around you isn't feeling particularly well, they may not say that. Yeah. And they might be living with this internal conflict and distress for a long time. And it's the analogy, isn't it, of taking the mask off. Take the happy smiley face off, and underneath is somebody that's struggling. And I think we can all relate to that. It's just what we do about that, and understanding the signs in ourselves that maybe things are not okay, and taking personal responsibility where we can, but for other people to collectively look out for each other. And that's why I think neighbourhoods and communities probably do that a lot better than a service response, because we're closer to each other, we're more responsive, we might think more creatively about helping somebody through a difficult time. But we all need to check in on our mental health, we all need to be honest about it, and it's not an easy thing to be honest about.
No, it's not. I can remember, I think the whole mental health arena has come on so much in the last 20 years or so. I can remember that there was a time when mental health was something you didn't talk about. It was taboo. and you didn't. Whereas now everyone is conscious of mental health, and it's just as debilitating, if not more, than physical health. So I think we've actually come a long way with with mental health and being and our awareness of that. So we talked about then what wellbeing is, which is a whole range of different things, which I can't even remember them all. But and we've talked about obviously where we think we are as a nation, where we think we are locally. What's the future then? Where do you think the future for wellbeing is going to? Is it going to grow in consciousness, you think, or?
Yeah, I do. Like I said, before, there's a really strong appetite to be responsive to our own well-being and the well-being of others. I do think as human to human, we absolutely have got an internal drive for that. It's just about being responsive and recognising some of the influences. I think it's interesting to sort of look back on how the World Health Organisation describes well-being. And it's described as a resource for daily life determined by social, economic and environmental conditions. But they also state that well-being encompasses quality of life and the ability of people and societies to contribute to the world with a sense of meaning and purpose. So I think when you strip that back and you think meaning and purpose for everybody are key pillars of why you get up every day, what definitely. You do. If what I'm doing is meaningful, if that is getting up and feeding one of my family pets, and that is the thing that makes me happy and I'm responsible and that is the thing that's important to me, that is just as valuable as somebody, doing every single form of exercise on the planet to keep them, up and out and enjoying the fresh air. So I think as a community, we're definitely learning what meaning and purpose is, locally, nationally, and from a leadership perspective, I think there's definitely an understanding that meaning and purpose, connection to people and place, are just, the essence of what, can make somebody view life very differently and live a life that they want to live. And making allowances for those periods of time when actually, maybe things are different. External factors and influences will definitely affect how we view our well-being and what we can do to change things. I think it's great to celebrate some of the offers we've got locally. I mean, there might be people that are thinking, I want to make some changes in how I live my life. I'm recognising that I want to maybe have a better healthy perception on life, or actually get up and do something. So I think it's really good to celebrate that. Actually, locally in Southend, we have got a lot of open green space. We've got a lot of beautiful parks. We've got the seafront. Yes, we've got the tourism element of that, and that's great for our economy, but it's a busy place, and that's not always right for people. No. Where we seem to be growing as a city of animal lovers. Everywhere's dog friendly now. We're loving that. And
do you have a dog?
I don't at the moment. We did lose our dog in lockdown, which was really sad, but she'd had a long and happy life. Right. But we're just in the throes of, do we do this again? And it's filling all of us with a sense of excitement.
What breed of dog?
Oh, Springer Spaniel puppy. Oh, okay. Yeah, which, we know is going to be a lot of hard work. Yeah. But suddenly everyone's got a bit of a buzz about them, we're a bit excited. We're already thinking to ourselves all the walks we can do, where we can go, checking things out, and the joy that this, and some of the headaches, I'm sure, when my furniture is chewed up and I've lost a shoe. I'm sure,
it does force you out, though. It does force you out having a dog. Yeah,
absolutely.
We have a dog and had dogs for years, and it does get you off your backside and get out there to take you for a walk.
It's a motivator, isn't it? Yeah, and again, it's that simple kind of reference to meaning and purpose. And the responsibility of, I'm responsible for protecting my animals, my children, my friends. It's that human connection connection. Everybody wants to feel safe. Everybody wants to feel connected, but that's not easy for everybody to do that. And people do want choice about, you know, how they might make healthier changes to their lifestyle. I think we've had the years of feeling punished about things and you know, got a bit fed up with it, to be honest, isn't it? You know, I sometimes avoid going to my GP because I think, oh no, you're going to go on at me, you're going to get on the scales, you know, you're going to ask me how much I might drink or might smoke, how much activity I do. So sometimes I think, you know, just be confident in who you are. Small changes have the most impact. And please get in touch with Southend Council. You know, we are really responsive to listening to our residents. Get involved in what's happening at your local neighbourhood. There are so many brilliant organisations. You know, we are flooded with talent in Southend. We've got fantastic educational opportunities. It might not be as hard as you think to do some of the things that are different.
Yeah.
And be brave. And give yourself a bit of permission to get things wrong. If they go wrong, then actually tomorrow is another day. And deep breath, and you know, just open your eyes a little bit, and be, you know, be confident in who you are and the decisions that you make. And if you need help, accept it.
Okay, that's great, Maxine. Well, thank you very much. So that's all from us today. If you haven't already, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook and YouTube, and of course, The Wave Southend. Please feel free to leave us a message to let us know what you think, and don't forget to give the other 2 episodes released today a listen.
It's been really great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about wellbeing today. I think that we've covered a broad range of subjects, and it's brilliant. And please get in touch with Southend Council. So I'm Maxine at the Communities team. You can leave a message at Southend Council, and I will get in touch with you if you leave your details. It would be great to hear from you.